Good evening and welcome to another UIW Red Talk. I'm Dr. Lisa McNary, Dean of Alumni and Parent Relations. Boy, do we have a treat for you this evening. This Red Talk is sure to lift your spirits and ignite your soul. Let me tell you a little bit about our presenter tonight. The Right Reverend Dr. Trevor Alexander is a proud UIW alumnus, receiving his undergraduate degree in psychology and religious studies. He holds a Master of Arts degree in pastoral ministry from the Oblate School of Theology and a Doctor of Divinity from St. Thomas Christian College and Seminary. Bishop Alexander has served in various positions in the Church of God in Christ and presently serves as the senior pastor and founder of True Vine Church. In addition to serving as a senior pastor and Texas Southwest Regional Bishop, he also serves as the Protestant chaplain for the University of the Incarnate Word, the Office of Mission and Ministry, and is an adjunct faculty member. Bishop Alexander has received many accomplishments. Most notably, was inducted into the San Antonio Black Worship Hall of Fame in 2016. In 2018, he was recognized by the UIW Black History Committee for his achievement as a Black alumnus. As any good spouse will tell you, he met his future wife and better half, Pastor Emma Marie, while they were both stationed in West Germany in 1985. Since he and his wife co-founded True Vine Church, Bishop Alexander has not only carried his healing messages beyond his local assembly, but also into conferences across this nation of diverse backgrounds. Bishop Alexander has also ministered internationally in the Caribbean, Canada, and on the continent of Africa. He teaches and believes that we are all called to impact and empower the lives of the people we come in contact with. You will truly enjoy his ministry as he moves deeper into the things of God. I now welcome my esteemed friend and colleague who will be sharing how the eyes are the windows of our souls, with a special emphasis celebrating Black History Month. Welcome, Bishop Alexander.
And thank you, Dr. McNary, and it's so good to see you today. And thank you for each and every one of you joining us on this evening. I know there's some things you could be doing, but I'm so glad you tuned in to hear this Red Talk. I was sharing with Jorge earlier on, I assigned my students to do TED Talks, and I've always wanted to do a TED Talk. And so when Jorge gave me the phone call to do the Red Talk, I'm like, yes, this is my first one. So if I mess up, it's okay. It's okay. I'll do better the next time. So I want to thank again each of you for joining us on today. As you heard, the topic is the eyes are the window to the soul. That was something that was birthed in my spirit over the last 2 years. The eyes are the windows to the soul. I wasn't sure what that meant, what I was going to do with it. And truthfully, I'm still not sure what it all means. I know that when Jorge called me and asked me to do that, I said, this will be an opportunity to expand on the eyes are the windows to the soul. And prayerfully, at the end of this presentation, you would understand why it's still not finished. I wanted to find out the origin of what this whole phrase that some of you all may have even used yourself, the eyes are the windows to the soul. Now, I did some research, and it's unclear as to the origin of that saying. Some people say it appears to be in ancient Latin work, and even some biblical scholars say it originated from the Bible. One thing that I saw that I think, okay, I'm not sure that's the origin, but you know what? I like it. So I'm going to use it. It's a scripture from Matthew chapter 6, verses 22 and 23. And it says, the eyes is the lamp of the body. If the eyes are healthy, your whole body was filled with light. But if the eyes is unhealthy, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light is within you is darkness, how great is that darkness? I like that. I'm not sure, again, if that's the origin of this whole, the eyes are the windows to the soul, but I think that speaks to the character of what I'm trying to get to on tonight. As early back as in 1976, President Gerald Ford addressed the general public, and I'm going to give it a quote. He says, we need to take every opportunity to honor the too often neglected accomplishments of Black Americans in every area of endeavors throughout our history. So somebody asked me, why are we celebrating all these different heritage and why are we doing Black History Month? My simple question is that's a simple question. My simple answer is this. We need to continue to celebrate the history of the Americas. There are so many people who have made contributions, and I'm going to be truthful. As more and more as I attend Black history programs and watch documentaries, I myself am amazed at some of the things that I have not studied or even brought to my attention. So I think the more we can learn about culture, the more we can learn about the contributions of Black Americans into our nation, the better we would be at the end of the day. So what are we talking about? The eyes are the windows to the soul. During this pandemic, I find myself looking into the eyes of people. I can't see their faces as much, I do see their eyes. And the question oftentimes pops into my head, what is the story that these eyes are telling me? There's a story that everyone has a story. What is the story that these eyes are speaking to me? And then there's another saying that I say in my church, and I believe that. There's a story within the story. There's a story that you share with the general public, and then there's a story that's much deeper, much personal. So I'm often wondering, what is that story that's in the eyes, and what is the story behind that sight? And so I'm wondering, what is the real story? So today, allow me a few minutes to peer into the eyes of a few people from our history that has made major contributions. And we will put that up on the screen. And some of you always looking at the eyes. You've seen these eyes before. In fact, you have seen these photos before. But have you taken the time to look into the eyes of this particular person? Before we give into the full screen of who she is, let me tell you a little bit about the story within this story. This story is a woman who was tired one day, and she went on the bus, and she looked at the bus driver, and she was fed up with certain behavior from this bus driver. Let me tell you what this bus driver did to this woman. It was customary in the Deep South that when you get on the bus, you paid your fare, got off the front of the bus, and came in the back of the bus. She paid her fare. But when she got off the bus driver drove away. This particular night, she got on the bus and she paid her fare and she looked up and she saw that particular man. And she was like, no, he's not going to do this to me this time. Secondly, there's another story that's in here that around that time, you may have heard of Emmett Till. Emmett Till was murdered, a young 14-year-old boy who went to Muddy, Mississippi to spend some time with his relative. And the story says that he whistled at one of the white storekeeper, and she told her husband, and her brother, and another gentleman went to this man's house, pulled this young boy out of this home and murdered him, broke every bone in his face. It was horrific. Y'all may or may not know, his name is Emmett Till. So in those eyes, you see a woman who is fed up with a system. You see a woman who is feeling the pain of a mother losing her son. And now we go to the full picture of this woman. That's right, Rosa Parks. So she was not just only tired, as many have learned. She was tired one day, she was not going to. No, yes, she was tired, but she was sick and tired of the behavior that was going on in the South. And she was feeling the pain of Mama Till losing her son. So when you look into these eyes, you see a woman that's making a stance. Yes, when the bus driver said to her that if you don't move to the back of the bus, I'm going to call the police and have you removed. And her words were, and I quote, "and you may." She gave him permission because she was making a stance that the behavior was not acceptable. The next one, please. This gentleman is not maybe not well known by many of you. His name is Dr. Charles Hamilton Houston. Dr. Charles Hamilton Houston, in 1929, he was the dean of Howard University Law School. As a law school professor and the dean, he would teach classes. And he would impress on his students that when you graduate from Howard University, you don't graduate from the law school to build the biggest law firm. You don't just graduate to make the most money. You don't graduate to to take on the big cases and make a name for yourself. He says you will graduate from this law school to be a social engineer or a parasite on society. Wow. What an introduction to a course. You graduate from this school to be a social engineer or a parasite in society. And we give a full picture of who he is. That's Dr. Charles Hamilton Houston. Sitting in his class is the next slide. Sitting in his class is this gentleman. You may not recognize his eyes, but we here at the University of Incarnate Word, you who are sat in classrooms, who have been integrated with students who are not like yourself, we are sitting in these classrooms because these eyes sat in the classroom with Dr. Charles Hamilton Houston. And he took those words to heart. And he decided he was going to become a social engineer and not a parasite on society. And we get a full picture of who he is. That's who he is. And many of you may or may not know him. That is Thurgood Marshall, a Supreme Court justice. But he decided that he was going to make a difference, not just in his community, but nationwide. He was going to be a social engineer and not a parasite on society. He took those words to heart. The next person we're going to look at, and I'm pretty sure many of you have already recognized those eyes. You've seen those eyes time and time again. Matter of fact, it's almost impossible to go through a Black History program and not have the name of these eyes mentioned. Well, let me give you something about these eyes that you may not know. These eyes spoke of the beloved community. These eyes had a love for humanity. These eyes spoke speeches that still impact America to this day. But these eyes speak to this beloved community that this eyes was trying to create, that we should all still strive to create to this day. In the beloved community, Dr. King says, and I gave away it already, so we can give the full picture since I would have gave the name away. He said that there are three evils we need to confront. The first evil is called racism, then poverty and militarization. He says and all those for Dr. King were not independent, but they were co-joint at the hips. That when we can spend less money on our military and spend more money on programs to educate us as a community on what racism, the ugly head of racism, what it can do, and end poverty, we can build this beloved community. And in this beloved community he called for redemption and reconciliation. To be reconciled, that means we have to come to the table and use the language that Dr. King used in the beloved community. We would come to the table as brothers and sisters yes, the table would have some uncomfortable discussions, but when we come to the table, we see each other as brothers and sisters. Then begins the terminology of reconciliation, because we have to be reconciled one to another. This next eyes is a gentleman that you may or may not know. I know him very well. He may not be a historical figure, maybe not in the history books, but this is the eyes of a gentleman who have taken the words of Dr. King and been preaching and teaching and lecturing on the beloved community. This is the eyes that care about humanity, who cares about the students, who cares about the community that we live in, and have been working tirelessly, building the beloved community, building social justice, having platforms where people will listen and preach to and instill that we could come to the table as brothers and sisters. This is the eyes of somebody you know. And we go to the full picture. Yeah, that's me. Sounds kind of arrogant? No, because what I want you to get out of this at the end of the day is we can all make a difference. Your eyes have a story to tell. My eyes has a story to tell. I have been part of Black History Month for a long time. Matter of fact, I was served on the Black History Month committee chair for 17 straight years. 15 straight years. And I've been sharing and putting programs together. But this time, Using the theme, the eyes are the windows to the soul, the question will be, what will be your story that you will carry away with you at the end of this Black History Month? Maybe you have not attended any other Black History Month programs or read any history or watch a documentary, but you're watching this now. So at the end of this presentation, the question will be, what will you be carrying away and what will your eyes tell others as they see you on tomorrow? As we look at these eyes, my eyes, your eyes, we have a story. What will be your story? There's a deeper story within my eyes and in your eyes. If you care about your community and you care about America, the question that I think the eyes will be asking and should ask, what will be the soul of America when this Black History Month is over? What will it look like? What will be the soul of white and Black and brown America when this month is over? Will we prepare for another Black History Month, and as we've been doing, or will we stop and ask the question, and that question will be, what will my role be? What stories will my eyes tell my children and my grandchildren and my great-great-grandchildren? What stories will my eyes tell when I get back to work on on tomorrow? What stories would it tell? If I take a deeper look into the soul of America, understanding that the politicians don't have the answers, we may not have all the answers, but somewhere within us, I can do something. I can make a difference, as small as it may be, I can make a difference. So when you look into the eyes of America, what would it look like? What would a soul look like? In 2016, I went to church on a Wednesday, and it was a shooting of a young African-American, 32-year-old, by the name of Philando Castile. When I showed up to church to do my Wednesday night Bible study, I looked into the eyes of those in my congregation, and I realized that lesson that I had prepared to teach that night was not going to be adequate enough. Because in the eyes of the people I was looking into, I saw pain, I saw sorrow, and I saw questions. I said, okay, we will not do our regular Bible study today. I will begin to ask you, what are you feeling? And different ones started sharing their story, sharing how they felt, the pain of losing another Black American, the pain that was going through. And we were going and we're having a wonderful discussion and a deep discussion. And then somebody asked the question, what are the conversation taking place in the white churches? And my response was very simple. I don't know, but I can check. So I reached out to a member of University Presbyterian Church, which is not too far from here. And he was a friend of mine. We went to this program, and I said to him, David, I said, can I speak to you? I think he was associate pastor at the time. I said, can I speak to you after the program? And we spoke after the program. I said, I want to sit and bring a couple of my members from my church and a couple of members from your church, and let's have this discussion about what is going on in our community. The meeting was set up, we arrived, and the first question I asked this pastor of the church, I said, what is about my story that you need to know? And the questions came. Then I said, what is it about your story that you need us to know? And then we started interchanging and sharing stories. That was 2016. Here we are in 2022. University Presbyterian Church and True Vine Church, which I have the honor of pastoring along with my wife, we have now formed a partnership with University Presbyterian Church, and it has not been a year past that we have not come jointly together to discuss issues of race and how to make things better. And it's that conversation, this partnership, this family church that we have came out of looking into somebody's eyes and asking the question, what are you feeling right now? So maybe at the end of this discussion, and you're trying to figure out, what are we feeling right now? I don't know what you're feeling. I can tell you what I'm feeling. I'm feeling hope that we have this platform, that we could come together and share our stories. What are we feeling right now? In a nation that's divided, can we and should we stay divided? My answer is no. I saw how us as a nation came together during 9/11, Katrina, and other natural disasters. We can come together and we can work together and we should work together. So what is the story telling you? Look into my eyes and see what my story is. And if you don't know my story, ask me my story. I know it's hard to see my facial expression with my mask on, but my eyes have a story. Your eyes has a story. And so I'll leave you with this quote. And the quote is from James Baldwin. He says, not everything you face can be changed, but nothing can be changed until you face it. We need to have the courage to face the problems and the issues that's dividing us and help us to become the people of God. We need to face those issues and build Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s beloved community where we can all live together, where racism and poverty and discrimination and all those isms are no longer part of our societies, when we can look at each other and call each other brothers and sisters, because that's who we are. So when we look into the eyes and you look into the mirror, ask yourself this question: what will be the soul of America if I don't do my part? It's easy to look for somebody else to do their part, but what will be your part? Nothing can be changed until we face it. Do you have the courage to face those hard issues, to ask those hard questions, even with people who you disagree with? I thank you for listening, and I pray that as we finish out this Black History Month, that our little time together made a difference, sparked something in you. When the next time you see somebody, you look into their eyes, you see their humanity and not labels that we may put them in. Thank you so much. I don't know if we have any questions. We'll see.
Yes, thank you so much, Bishop Alexander. And to tell my story, many of y'all know him. To me, he's Trevor. My story is, he's a great man. He married my husband and I, and we will forever be friends. We come from two different races, two different religions, and we came together through marriage. So it's wonderful. Thank you for that. You touched on a couple of these questions, but you might want to go a little deeper. And I encourage all of you that are watching to go ahead and continue to ask those questions. We will read those live here on Facebook and on YouTube as well. So continue to ask those questions either through chat on Facebook or through YouTube. But many times we are judged by first impressions. That could be size, shape, age, color, many different things. How do we get others to see us as unique, the unique individuals that God has made us? And then how do we get them to see our sameness? Because we have a lot of similarities. But people they always say first impressions. I don't like that, first impressions. And then how do we get them to see our differences?
Thank you. That's a great question. Let me begin by saying, when you see somebody that you have a disagreement with, or there's something you dislike, sit and have a talk. One of the things that I do often is break bread with people, right? I think that's one of the most interesting, non-threatening ways to break bread. And one of the things that I do is, for instance, if somebody said they want to be my friend, this kind of sounds crazy, but I do. Let's have a meal. And then we break bread. And I ask the question, what is it that you expect from me as a friend, right? Let's find out these barriers, these boundaries, set them early. Because I think when we look at somebody, we jump to a conclusion, as you just mentioned, this is impressions. We don't know their stories. And I can give you examples of people, even here, when I first came to UIW, somebody said, "Ooh, she's a real meanie." I asked this particular person, "I'm going to get some coffee. Do you want some coffee?" She said, "Sure." Now, let me give you this other thing that I did that day. I said, "Cream and sugar?" I don't even know why I did that. Okay, I did. And so I brought the cream, the coffee, put it down on her desk and left. The next day, I came back and asked her if she wants some coffee. She said, yes. This time, I asked her, "Can I sit and drink it with you?" She said, yes. That became a regular routine with us, drinking coffee together. And I found out she wasn't as mean as people said. She just had a rough life, had a lot of things that popped up in her. She was very guarded. But once I got into that space and found her story, it broke it down. And let me tell you, when her mother died, she invited me to the funeral to sit with the family, right? And we were two completely different skin tones and different families. But why? I took the time to know her story. So when people say this is person's this and that, get to know them, hear their stories. What is it about that story, your story, that you want me to know? And then when you ask that question, Noah, please allow me to share my story as well. And the other thing, that the other part of your question, you said, I don't remember, there was two parts.
How do we get them to see our sameness and our differences and rejoice in
Thank
those
you. Yes.
differences?
Let me just say this, and I'm gonna, one of my pet peeves, if you will, when people say they don't see color, then I'm invisible to you. Recognize my color, I recognize yours. Don't let the color be a barrier. It's an opportunity to get to know me. What you did not read in my bio, and is there, is that I am a British West Indian. My parents are born in the West Indies from the island of St. Vincent, right? I grew up as a British West Indian. At the age of 17, I came to the United States of America. I became African American from an 8-hour flight. The story is too different. I have a lot in me, but you don't know me. Sit and talk to me. And so when you see you don't see color, you're denying my heritage. And if I see I don't see your color, I'm denying yours. You, Dr. McNary, you remember Father Philip, who was once our chaplain here, who passed away, I think, in 2008. Him and I were very close. He was older than I was, a Catholic priest. Here I am, a Protestant chaplain, but we became close. Why? We have more in common than we had separate. And we had lunch together. We hung out together after work. We became friends. And one of the things we used to tell folks, we were twins, even though he was much older and he was white and I'm black. You know why? We were kindred spirits because we took the time to know each other. And I hope that answered your question. I see my wife is on now. She said, great job. So my wife gave
Hi, Emma. Here's another question for you. You shared a little about your partnership with University Presbyterian Church. How can we look as individuals? How can we learn to look through someone's eyes and communicate with them on a deeper level? I know you just touched on that a little bit, but if you go up to someone and you see them, how do you look through their eyes and communicate with them on a deeper level?
my wife would, if she was with me, she'd tell you, I'm a social butterfly. I engage people, even standing in lines. I just talk to people. That's what I do. But let me just say, maybe something more practical is, what are you reading? What are you watching on TV? What documentary have you watched lately? What books about a particular group that you need to read to understand? I watch a lot of documentary. I watched a documentary yesterday on Ethiopia, right? I watched a documentary the other day on the Queen of England and how she came to the throne and all of that things, right? Because the more you educate yourself, the more you feel comfortable to engage others. Another thing that I think is so simple, it's by talking to somebody. If you see somebody, you want to get to know them better, say, listen, I'm not trying to invade on your space, but there's something about you I need to know. Can we just have a little conversation? And you'd be surprised that people will be willing to say yes. Now, not everybody will say yes, but many people will be willing to share if you give them the opportunity. So I would say to you, start off by small, by what are you reading? Read magazines, books, articles. As we're in this wonderful age called technology, there are things available to us that wasn't as prevalent as I was growing up. Utilize those tools and become more, let me just give a caveat to that. Watch what you're reading. Not everything out there is healthy. Let me recommend a book, and also he's on YouTube, Dr. James Combs, who is the father of Black liberation theology. He wrote a book called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. On YouTube, there's an hour-long discussion of why he wrote that book and how it came to be. That's some great insight there. Those are the type of things I think that help us to get to know each other better. Dr. Arturo is here, says, okay, I see you.
Oh, good. You can see him. Thanks. I don't think we have any any more questions. There's a lot of thank yous. I know a lot of people have done a lot with you and cherish all of your thoughts and what you have to share with us. So we will continue to have conversations with people throughout the next week or so, probably the next few weeks, knowing your base here. So we appreciate you again sharing your thoughts and helping us look into the eyes of others. And we appreciate it, Bishop Alexander.
Thank you.
And thank you for all of you out there that have continued to support our Red Talks. Keep an eye out for our next one next month, and we will see you soon. Have a good evening, everybody.